Welcome back, poker enthusiasts. In today's videos, we'll be reviewing a sick hand played between Mars and Ludacris on Hustlers Casino Live. Let's dive right in with the pre-flop action.
What do I call it?
On your 50th birthday, when your friends paid someone to kiss you. It doesn't matter. It's like your first kiss.
Mars starts by open raising in the hijack, and Ludacris decides to aggressively 3-bet with the 7-3 of spades from the cutoff. It might be obvious, but this usually will not perform well in most situations. 7-3 suited is simply not a very good hand and will struggle to win the pot at showdown. It can't make strong pairs, makes weak flushes, and can only make a straight on a 4-5-6 liner board. Contrast this to 7-6 suited, which suffers the same problems, except it is 4 more times likely to make a straight, a considerable bonus. To try to estimate the expected value of Ludacris's 3-bet, we can refer to a program called Simple Preflop. Modeling the situation shows that 7-3 suited 3-betting loses about half a big blind against a perfectly balanced player, equivalent to losing at a rate of 50 big blinds per 100 hands, a substantial loss rate. However, we're not playing against perfect players, so let's consider an interesting hypothetical scenario. When would this 3-bet perform well enough to be break-even or winning? I think the biggest factor would be that villain overfolds to a 3-bet preflop, since whenever this happens, assuming everybody behind Ludacris folds in addition to Mars, Ludacris would win about 4 big blinds in a non-anti-standard game. Another factor that could make this play better is if Mars doesn't 4-bet much, since, assuming that Ludacris always folds 7-3 suited facing a 4-bet, Ludacris always loses 7.5 big blinds, again assuming we're in a hypothetical non-anti game.
It's like your first kiss. Try it. Tell me if you agree or not. Huge draw for Mars. 3,000 in the middle.
Check.
Luda has a backdoor spade draw.
On the flop, the board comes King Queen 2 with a flush draw. Mars checks procedurally, and Ludacris decides to check back. I think continuation betting and checking are pretty close, but I think check is more likely to be better. A typical 3-bet calling range on a board with 2 Broadway cards is likely fairly strong, so Ludacris wouldn't have abundant fold equity if he chose continuation bet. Additionally, checking back allows Ludacris to gain visibility against a player who will likely be betting with hands that have decent or better equity on the turn and checking a fairly weak range. In the former case, Ludacris has an easy fold unimproved, while in the latter case, he can delay his bluff to the turn for greater effectiveness.
Now both players have a flush draw. Advantage Mars.
On the turn, Mars decides to probe with a bet of about 60-70% pot. However, I think checking would have been much better since betting doesn't accomplish much. Better hands are likely to call, like ace-queen, and worse hands are likely to fold, like pocket nines. Although Mars may have felt his nut flush draw justified the bet, the 9 outs from a flush draw doesn't significantly shift the equation, since villain's calling range is still solidly ahead with hands like ace-queen. Secondly, against an aggressive player, Mars has a nice trap on flush completing boards against Ludacris's bluffs.
And Luda is going to raise. Mars we know is not going anywhere.
Ludacris decides to raise after Mars' bet. This hand is starting to get too sick to analyze. I think calling will be better than raising, but raising does have merit as a bluff with 7 high and a draw to a strong hand. On a 3 Broadway board and having called a 3-bet pre-flop, however, Mars' range is just going to be dense with strong looking hands like 2 pairs straights and even pair plus draws like King 10 and Ace 9 suited, and I don't think Ludacris's raise is going to have much fold equity.
Luda's going to need to dodge a club for sure, a jack, a 10,
Nice.
Raise it up.
And look at this.
25.
Mars puts in a
25, he said.
3-bet.
Mars 3-bets. Now this hand is truly making me sick to my stomach. This 3-bet suffers from the same problems as the turn probe, a point I won't belabor, so let's see what develops on the river.
Wild. There's the call.
All 25.
Ludo drawing to a spade. Interesting card here. Oh no. Oh
All in.
no. All in.
All in.
Ludicrous bluffs all in for about a pot-sized bet. I like this bluff by Ludicrous for two reasons. Firstly, it's challenging for Ludicrous to have a bluff on this run out because the board is really Broadway dominant and the other flush draw came in. Secondly, even though I'm skeptical that players generally are capable of evaluating the relative strength of their hand, in large pots like this, I think players tend to tighten up and fold equity is more abundant. For example, generally speaking, trip queens on this river board is a strong hand, but I think against this line, most players would recognize that it's pretty weak. Back to Mars, who faces a difficult decision. The first question I would ask myself is whether Ludicrous could value bet worse hands. I think this is unlikely but possible, as the best flush that Ludicrous could have is a 10 high flush after considering Mars's hand and the board flush blockers. Ludicrous is an aggressive player, so I can see him making some thinner looking value bets like this. The second question is, what is Ludicrous's value range? I think it's mostly concentrated in full houses, specifically Queen Jack and Pocket Jacks, the two hands that are fairly weak on the flop but greatly improve on the turn, which is consistent with Ludicrous's flop check and turn raise. Note that Mars has very good blockers against this range. With the Jack himself, it's half as likely that Ludicrous is holding these hands. The third question is, what is Ludicrous's bluff range? Like I mentioned, it's hard to have bluffs here, so the bluffing range feels pretty narrow since most hands are pairs or better. When we put all of the factors together, I don't really know whether calling or folding is better, and that's okay. It's possible that the expected value of both plays are roughly the same, or we can accept that as mere mortal humans, we will never know which action is better. This hand is so sick, I'm practically vomiting right now, but let's see what Mars decides to do.
Don't know if this is the opponent to try and tell it to. This is not a big game for Mars. He just wants to make the right decision. Pocket deuces? No. What about the flop?
I call.
Show me that.
Full house.
That's not a full house.
Flash. So lucky. I'm full house. What are you doing? Oh, God. So obvious I'm full house.
If you made it this far, you might be interested in personal coaching. You can check out criticalpoker.com for more details, or contact me directly at info@criticalpoker.com, or DM me at MNW on Discord. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep honing your poker skills.